You're listening to a DM podcast.
What they said.
Coming up on today's show, Naomi shares how best to recognise that you're in a toxic relationship in Naomi's Wifey Lifey.
And in Lou's dating diary, she'll be updating us on her dating life.
We continue with part 2 of what consent means in modern dating in question of the week.
And in Perfect Match, we found ourselves a man.
Oh my God, we found ourselves a couple?
No. And we'll be hearing them from the Perfect Match. All that and more
in today's show. Bring it on. Hey, Naomi.
Hey, Lou. How are you today?
I'm good. Look, I'm so happy to be back in the studio and to see your lovely face.
Yes, I do prefer it than doing it online. And we've got another busy show ahead.
We do. And I guess, look, let's get into it.
Wifey Lifey.
So this week, I thought I'd focus on talking about how to recognise that you're in a toxic relationship.
Look, I think this is going to be super important, and I think some of the things that you'll probably end up mentioning can be, you can use these tips, etc., throughout your dating and relationship life, even from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
I know I can.
So first of all, I think today I recognise that I've got, and I've mentioned it to you before, I've got a really good open communication with my partner. And when I was married, I guess one of those things, I don't know if you knew, but when I was in my marriage, I always thought it's not rainbows and unicorns. So it's not like, oh yeah, La La Land and everything.
But the thing is, if you're in love, it should be though, isn't it?
Is it?
Is that what, really? What?
I don't know. I was in a relationship where I was just, maybe exhausted, and I had kids, and I was looking after kids, and I was driving them to school and cooking and all that mental load that sometimes during that time I thought, maybe this is as good as it got.
See, because you weren't in that rainbows, unicorns lifestyle mindset, because it wasn't happy.
So I never thought whether I was happy or sad or content. I just thought that
this was your lot.
Yeah, I just thought that if I wasn't unhappy,
then you can't be that bad.
Then I was okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So you settled.
So yeah, I settled. I guess. I guess I got married in my 20s. I've got 3 kids with my husband. Things were bumbling along, but somewhere along the line, I did notice that we didn't communicate really well.
So, because we're going to be talking about, obviously, toxicity, etc. Do you think that is, because obviously that was where you felt that you were settling, it's kind of mundane, etc. But is there a difference between that element of feelings to,
what is toxic?
Exactly.
And I think that this is where it gets a little bit blurry, right? Because I guess I've got the beauty of hindsight now to think, hang on a minute, I wasn't in a healthy relationship.
Right.
And there was moments where I felt like I wasn't being heard. My feelings were dismissed.
Or gaslit.
And this is where I struggle with sort of like going out and saying purely it's a toxic relationship, because does it have to be physically violent?
No.
Does it have to be stonewalling?
No.
Does it actually have to be withholding intimacy?
No.
Yeah, so there's a whole heap of things, right?
Toxic can mean toxic. It's whatever makes you feel like shit, right? Okay, it's what makes you feel like you're not yourself and a shell of yourself, okay? A relationship is supposed to be, the sunshine and rainbow things. It's supposed to compliment you. It's supposed to make you feel happy. If it's not starting to be that way and you're getting one up on each other, nitpick and trying to get a rise out of each other, just to add drama and just to add some form of excitement to your relation, that is freaking toxic.
Yeah, totally. And then when I look back on it, and there was times when I did identify that we were not in a good place. So I went out and I got myself some counselling.
Oh, good. So you worked on you.
Yeah, I worked on me. And at one of the sessions, we did end up having a joint session. And that was probably 2 years prior to us breaking up. And in that session, I came to the realization, maybe he was always like this, and I just accepted.
You know that old saying, love is blind?
Totally. And
Right.
when you're 20, I think you're doubly blind.
I think it doesn't even matter. I don't think even when you're 20, it could be 30, it could be 40. Look, I could honestly say, and I'm not just saying like my Jay, me and Jay, okay? Don't get it twisted. We're still really good friends, etc. But there were certain things there where I felt that it wasn't, I'm not saying it was toxic, okay? I'm not saying it's toxic. So, you know, whatever. Otherwise we still wouldn't be friends, right?
Yeah.
But there were certain aspects of that relationship where where I know I wasn't feeling fulfilled and happy. And I'm sure that there's probably things that where he wasn't feeling, you know, fulfilled and happy as well, right? So it was a case of like, and so you're just muddling along, and that is toxic in itself because nobody wants to, you know, address the fact of it or anything. You're just kind of
Existing
and just overlooking stuff because you're in love with that person and you don't want to like rock the boat in case they leave or you mess it up. Perceived you mess it up when you haven't really messed up. You're just being healthy by bloody bringing it up.
In 2004, and this is it comes with a trigger warning for our listeners as well, is that I went through a rough period where I did have my first miscarriage, and a lot of that, you know, you go through a lot of grief.
Man, of course you do.
You know, and I think that during that time, I felt as though I wasn't being listened to. And I tried to rationalize it at the time that he's a man.
Nah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was starting to make excuses.
No, that's...
I know. Like in my 40s now, I can sort of like say, why the hell did you do that? But that was the first time, and I felt like I wasn't being supported through the process. And then after that, I had my first child, I had my second child, and then I had 2 more miscarriages. And it was on the 3rd miscarriage that I really suffered, and I felt like I was in a really dark place. And I remember coming out of the hospital because he's a medical, and I ended up going and finding out that I had a miscarriage.
So can I just interject here, right? Okay. You had 3 miscarriages, and you know, can I just say this? I don't know if the audience heard that keyword there. He was in medical.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the 3rd miscarriage I had, I went to have the first ultrasound. You know how you have the first ultrasound, and he was never there for my first my initial ultrasounds with any of my kids because he was, you know, working a very important job. And again, I made excuses. But the 3rd time I went and had my first ultrasound, and the heartbeat was really low. And the obstetrician said to me, Naomi, this is not going to be a viable pregnancy, and we're going to have to go and do a D&C. And at that particular time, my world had just turned upside down because I really wanted to have a lot of kids. And so and he said, you need to make a decision. We need to go and D&C. So I contacted my husband, and he was at the hospital, and I basically said, you know, the obstetrician has said that the ultrasound has come back with a low heartbeat. You need to go and get a D&C done. Do you think that's the right decision? And I needed him...
Well, being a medical professional and all
to
that.
back me up, right? So he just goes, Naomi, you just got to make the decision. And I'm like,
But hang on a minute, you both created that. Oh my
I know,
God.
right? And so then I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So I ended up saying, okay, I'll go do a D&C, right? And I did end up going to the hospital. I went, checked myself into the day surgery, got a D&C done, come out of the anaesthetic. He's there to pick me up. We go home, we drive home, and I'm distraught, right? I'm crying and really in a bad place mentally. So I said to him, I know you've got work tomorrow, but can you please stay home and look after our 2 kids? They were only 4 and 2 at the time.
And you just went through that procedure.
Yeah. And he said, no, I got to go to work, right? So that morning I woke up, I was crying for the next 24 hours, just really, really upset. I remember so clearly as I stood in the shower and I just broke down and I sat on the floor of the shower just crying and sobbing uncontrollably. He walks in and I said, please stay home with the kids and look after them because I'm not in a good place. He just basically said to me, Gnomes, that's my nickname, you really got to just pick yourself up and get on with it. And I think that was the point that I just never recovered from, when I just felt like I've got a husband who understands the medical side. Why can't he support me when I needed the most? And I should have identified that was a toxic part of our relationship.
Shit,
And
Naomi.
you're bringing-
We're all in tears here. Like, I'm not even joking. Bless you, Naomi. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, seriously, look, that's going to be very, very hard and deep to hear for most of our listeners. And it was hard and deep for me to hear. But this is Naomi's truth. And she felt compelled to share that with us. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's hard hitting. And just by listening to that, it's easy for me to sit here getting all fucking riled up and angry about it, because I am. Like literally, I want to go and slap the fucker. But it's important to be able to share that, so that somebody who is listening to this can see that for it could be something like that they're going through themselves and go, you know what, that's fucked up. I'm leaving. This is not right. This is look, I'm not a qualified psychiatrist or anything. That's fucked up narcissistic behaviour.
And I think that at that particular time, and I went recently back onto the journals that I wrote during that time, and there was so much raw emotions out of there, and I just felt so unsupported. And that was such a significant part of my life that I felt really empty.
That is just because if he can't be there for some of that. I mean, look, that is one of the most hardest things as a woman you have to go through, right? You've lost your child, and it was his child too. I just don't understand how anyone could not have that empathy or those feelings that, it was his child too, and you had to go through that, and you were just saying, can you just stay with me for one day? Can you just take out look after the kids whilst I'm looking, what
that wasn't
after I just
even
went
the
through
worst part. That wasn't even the worst part, right? So he went off to work and I was a mess. I couldn't even, function properly to get kids ready to do things and stuff. I ended up messaging my sister, who ended up contacting him and said, you need to go home. Your wife needs you there. And for weeks after that, I was, sitting, and the biggest thing that was sort of like going through my head was I wanted kids so badly. What was wrong with me? What was going through my system? Why did I have these miscarriages, right? Because I think that those are the common questions that you ask yourself.
Yeah, you do say that,
right?
stuff, yeah.
So I one night I remember having this conversation with him, and I said, you don't even grieve with me because we've lost.
Yeah, we've
lost another child. He looked at me and he said, Naomi, you need to realise that the pregnancy was less than 12 weeks. You shouldn't have gone around telling everybody that you're pregnant.
Yeah, but that's not the point though.
There's still high risk. You've had miscarriages before. And at that particular point, I didn't need a statistician. I didn't need a clinical person.
You just needed someone to say, I love you, Naomi. It's going to be all right, and hug you and just tell you, yeah, it's going to be all right. Not just say, well, nobody told you to say anything. Da, da, da. It's not even about, you didn't even have to say anything to anyone. You could have kept it quiet to yourself. You had to go through that procedure and you had a miscarriage. Forget the ins and outs of it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
You had a miscarriage, you lost it, you lost something that you were carrying within you. That's the be all and end all. That's it. And there's no semantics, nothing.
And at that particular time, I felt really alone. And that should have been a warning sign for me. It was a freaking red flag.
That's even beyond toxic, man.
Red flag, red alarms, everything.
That's
and even then we ended up trying to, and then my third child, I ended up falling pregnant accidentally, and I should have just called it for what it. I should have called it for what it was, but I don't know, for some strange reason, you don't see it when you're in that relationship that has had that impact on you. And sometimes identifying the toxicity in a relationship can be quite challenging.
It can. I mean, because when you said, those were red flags, right? I would say those go beyond red flags, because you were married to them. You went through all that qualifying if they're going to be an all right person, etc. Those. So in theory, that's the red flags is a warning sign in order to get. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd say that it was beyond that. This is a guy showing his true colours coming out because he has no empathy, no anything. That wasn't down to you or anything. And I think the toxicity came where it came from him saying that and you trying to explain him away from, explain it away why he would say that. And then that just causes more toxicity because he can get away with it and then start picking at you even more. I'm not saying it's your fault, Naomi, not at all, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But the whole thing that he created from not having any empathy or anything, it's all him. It's all his fault.
Yeah. And I did sort of like identify those particular points. So that was sort of like one incident, that I felt like that was probably destabilized a lot of our relationship because I didn't see it. I didn't see the support. I didn't feel like I had a safety net.
But I think some people like him, like what he was doing, he was getting a sick kick out of it. I do think it's that kind of, how they say, a narcissistic sort of God complex. I reckon he was actually getting a bit of a kick seeing you suffer, seeing that he had that power over you and that he probably thought that he wouldn't go anywhere. But look at you now.
Yeah.
It made you stronger. You looked at that and went, you know what? Fuck this thing. Fuck what's going on. I can do so much better. And you have gone on and done so much better. And you also recognise now what a good relationship looks like. And you're helping other people
identify that. Yeah.
So thanks, dicks. for because if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. So I guess you could take that. No, don't, because it's got nothing. Naomi and mine's success has got nothing to do with you.
The other thing also I wanted to touch up very briefly on, and somebody mentioned it to me, was, hang on, let me get this right. Weaponized incompetence.
Oh yeah, I know that. It's like, when you so a guy, you ask the guy to wash the dishes, right? Yes. Guy washes said dishes but does it shit, right? Leaves like bits of it, like stains and stuff, because basically it's to show, but you do it so much better. So he does it shit, so
then you actually say,
I'll just do it.
Yeah, that's right. That was what I experienced a lot in my marriage as well. And the funny thing, funny or not funny, but when I actually first met him and I met his mum, she did say to me, so-and-so, if he doesn't actually want to do something, he'll do a bad job of it so that you won't ask him to again. And I used to think, it can't be that bad. Then you sort of like see it play out over the years.
Yeah.
And it was really that bad, I don't cook as well as you. I don't mow the lawn as well as you. Maybe we need to get a gardener in. I don't do this as well as you, therefore.
Yeah, it's bollocks.
It is totally bollocks. And so that's another sign, I guess, of recognising that toxicity.
I think, it just boils down to that whole empathy thing. If you're being treated, and I said this to someone today, right? If somebody's showing you that they don't care, right? Don't think that it's down to you to double that and overcare, right?
And
overcompensate, right? That's who they are, okay? That's, you shouldn't have to either explain yourself or explain their behaviour away, overcompensate for them to make it feel better, or show them, if I love them so much, they'd want to be with me, or they will change their way of how they behave towards me. They are behaving towards you in a certain way, and that's friends, partners, would-be daters and stuff. If they're breadcrumbing you and shit from the very beginning, they're going to do that all the time, right?
And it's not going to change.
It's not going to change, right? If they're showing you who they are, that is who they are.
The actions speak 1,000 words.
A thousand words, it does.
Definitely, yeah.
If after you heard that and some of what you heard resonated with you, or if you feel that you need to speak more to someone that can help you and assist you further, then please check out the numbers that we will put on our production notes on this episode.
Lou's Dating Diary.
Well, this week it's been busy actually, because obviously I'm back now in good old Sydney, good old Sidders, after my week in Brisbane. And I loved it being in Brisbane. I think, as I said in last episode, I think the guys there seem to know more what they want, and they actually seem to make an effort. So again, guys, you got to make a freaking effort. But I thought to myself, Lou, you need to go back on these apps. You need to make an effort.
Yes.
So I actually made a conceited effort over the weekend to go on said dating sites.
Did you change dating apps, or did you still stay on Bumble?
I've stayed on Bumble. I've got Hinge and Bumble and Tinder, and I've updated my pics with obviously the gods and goddess pictures.
Yes.
And also our foray in the podcast, that launch party, that very upmarket, podcast party that we went to where we scrubbed up well. So, yeah, I look schmick in my pictures. So, yeah. Yep. And, so I've been doing that and been speaking to a couple of people. And, they've been all right, actually.
So far looking a little bit positive.
Looking a bit positive, looking a bit promising. Got a date tomorrow. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Ooh, and so we'll see how that goes.
Okay, I'll make. What time is that?
I don't know yet. We're still. It's going to be after work, though.
Okay,
obviously.
I'll be on standby for the house on fire.
Yeah, my house is on fire with, but hopefully not. But
Conversation has been good so far.
Conversation has been good so far.
Yeah,
He's asked me to keep it quiet because he knows I do this podcast. So I'm like, look, if you ask me, if you're listening, right, and you're going to date me and stuff, right, I'm not going to broadcast it all to the world if you ask me not to. Yeah. Right. So we
do protect our listeners' privacy.
Yeah, and I give them nicknames anyway, like Benny Hill. Yes. Who can forget Benny? Oh my God, yeah, Benny Hill, right, guys. If you go back to season 1, right, I think it was season 1, episode 4. Something. I don't know. I can't remember, right? But anyway, I was on this Facebook group, which I'm not going to say to protect everyone, but this is a Facebook group, and his picture popped up warning Sydney women about this dude. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Benny freaking Hill.
And who do you tag?
I tagged Naomi. Obviously, I said, Naomi, mate, this Benny Hill. And I had to put it on there and say, look, just so you know, this person is, exactly. If you don't believe me, look, I've talked about this guy months ago on my podcast.
Yep.
And then funnily enough, because we're doing obviously the perfect match stuff, we match a load of people, and one of the ladies who I wanted to match for a future episode, I contacted her and she said, unfortunately I can't make this week, but I can do next week. I'm like, brilliant. And she goes, but I saw your post on Benny Hill. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, it wasn't my post, but I wrote on it. She goes, yeah, I know, because it was like my post. I was like, what? Oh. And I was like, bloody hell, it's a small goddamn world, eh?
We almost have to make an extra hard effort.
I'm making an extra hard effort for her because no way. Once you do a Benny Hill and you don't want to do another Benny Hill.
No.
But it's that. So that happened this week as well. That was interesting,
Yeah. So, have you got an idea what you want to do for your first date? Was it going to be a meet and greet or actually a formal first date? Or you can't talk about it?
I can talk about that because we haven't decided what we're going to do. I think it's going to be drinks after work.
Okay.
I think like really nice, cash.
Yep.
Now that I know where Baxter's Inn is, I reckon I may suggest that.
Yep. And make sure you turn up
and make sure I turn up for that. But it's been going really well. I think for me, I've been kind of reluctant to go into the whole dating.
Yes, it's been quite a few weeks, isn't it? That you've actually taken anybody seriously too.
I think it's it's not what I said before. I just found it really exhausting, and I am quite happy doing what I'm doing. Like I love setting people up, especially, and I'm really comfortable and confident in my own skin.
Yeah,
that I don't feel like I need to be in a relationship. Like if it happens, it happens. If the Mr. LP turns up and he turns out to be the right person, fabulous, you know. But I'm not in a hurry to meet him. If he's that tomorrow, then fair play, fine. But that's not gonna be my end all and be all. And anyway, I've got a load of sex toys. So
okay. Now you just threw that in.
No, but you know how there's some people, right? They say, I miss being in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because, the sexual stuff, I miss it and all that jazz. And we do talk about that as girls, right?
Oh, we do. We have
like,
a girls' chat where we were quite open about that.
Yeah, exactly. And we were like trading sort of like, oh, you should definitely try this toy.
Yeah.
Right? But it's true though. You, as a woman, unfortunately, I mean, look, it's always nice having a guy to have sex with. I don't think you could ever change that whole skin to skin intimacy, right?
That's right.
And regardless, if you're a boy, girl, it doesn't matter, right? It's
the human contact.
Human contact, the skin to skin human contact. Yes, it does. It trumps over everything. But if you have needs.
Yep, if you got to have needs.
You got to have needs.
You got to have needs.
Needs.
And there's, and some things like sex toys have always been something that men are probably more open with. And
You reckon? I don't think,
but no, but I think it's getting more traction with women now.
Traction.
Don't you think? Traction. It's getting more stimulus.
I think once upon a time ago, I think men now are a bit more accepting of toys, but there have been some men who find it kind of threatening, kind of
They're
like
intimidated.
They're intimidated by, oh, why do you need a toy for? Especially even as a couple, right? I remember when I was with a couple. To be fair, none of my guys who I've been with were like that. They were quite receptive of having toys, etc. But I know for a fact that there were some guys who are like, oh, I wouldn't want my woman to have a toy because I can satisfy her. And you're like, Jesus Christ, mate. So there's that element of it. So I do think women are a bit more open-minded with that. And I think the sex industry, the sex industry with toys especially is more geared to women. And the sex industry porn is more geared to men because men are more visual.
Yeah.
Whereas women, you need stimulus. You need stimulation. It's not just wham bam, thank you, ma'am, stick it in it. No, right?
Yeah.
Because we need to be turned on.
Yeah.
Right? And what better way and with a toy, it just gets you off.
And there's also all sorts of stimulus.
There's a reason
areas,
why,
right? That it can serve for different needs as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why the rampant rabbit was one of the biggest. It was one of the toys that went through the roof. Right, it became really popular worldwide. Some stores sold out of it, because everyone wanted to get their hands on the rabbit.
On the rabbit, the famous rabbit.
The famous rabbit. And it's still, to this day, when you say, oh, get a rabbit, people know.
Everybody knows what you're talking about when they're talking about the rabbit.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And it's, so I think there's some women out there who have never tried a toy before, and I do generally say, do it.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Don't knock it till you try it and have a go because there's some great toys out there. And what better way to learn about what, how you feel, what turns you on than having a toy or playing,
Yeah. So most definitely. And it actually helps you understand your body better as well.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And especially if you find it hard to orgasm or anything or even if you have a bit of like, you're not really that's a sexual person or anything. This can potentially help as well. And it's just about letting go and and having a bit of body exploration, but for you.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, this is for you you to enjoy. Right?
Yep.
This is your time. So you don't even have to have that stress of having to perform or please or something.
Yeah. I think that's probably something that traditionally women who were married before and going back into that dating scene, and like you said, we have spoken with some of our girlfriends on Sydney Friends, and it's a topic that
people shy away from it.
It is
taboo.
quite taboo. It is quite taboo, and until there is actually active, honest conversations about
there has to be, yeah.
Women tend to shy away from that.
Yeah, and women shouldn't.
And we shouldn't. It is about embracing your body, being comfortable with your body, being able to know what excites you as well, and really giving it a go.
Yeah, give it a go. And also, you don't need to go to a sex shop to buy, if you're embarrassed, etc. There's so many cool stuff online that you can get it discreetly sent to you. So sponsor us. You know that I'm into all that sort of stuff, right? Yes, you can sponsor us. You don't need to be. It's not about being ashamed or anything, right? Because I do think it's not just even the toy stuff. I think just masturbation in general is still a taboo
It is.
subject.
Yeah, it's almost like shamed upon, or you shouldn't
women don't do it.
or it's sinful, or women shouldn't do it. But at the end of the day, it's what makes you feel comfortable and pleasurable for yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's not just men that do it. So men, if you think that, women, oh no, she wouldn't do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all have needs.
We all have needs.
Question of the week.
So this week we're going to continue about our consent discussion, but we've actually like to hear it from the men's views.
We do, and we have a couple of special guests with us. We have Mr. Naomi KO, but oh my God, we're actually going to know his name now, aren't we, Naomi?
We're actually going to do the reveal. His name's Matt. I've got him on the line today, so we're going to ask him a couple of questions. Matt, are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so... Okay, hang on a sec.
So, Matt, has Naomi spoken to you about this consent stuff?
As in generally or just for today?
Just in generally, like, do you consent
We have spoken about things in the past around consent, just mainly to do with her two sons, because it's much more of a topic that's an issue for her to be aware of and for her to be concerned about with her two boys. So having a 17 and an 18-year-old out in the world and just starting to find their way with relationships, understanding consent for them is probably a much more critical and important thing, I think, at this point in time.
I completely agree with you, especially, I mean, as you know, I've got a 10-year-old. Oh, yes, he's a bit young, but I think it has to be instilled into them at a very early age.
Yep, most definitely.
Yeah, I think for a 10-year-old, I think consent is probably a different thing, and it's more about respect.
Yes.
And getting them to understand and respect the differences between men and women. And then the consent piece comes in and as they get a little bit older. But starting early is always a good thing.
So let's start out with some of our formal questions.
Yes, because Naomi has put down some formal questions. Formal questions.
What is your understanding of consent?
I think consent is a fairly straightforward thing. It's not forcing someone to do something which they don't want to do. It's if you want to proceed with something, and most often consent is talked about with regards to sex and sexual relations with people. It's basically not forcing them into doing something which they don't want to do, or putting them into a position where they basically regret what is happening, or basically end up in a situation where they're unhappy and uncomfortable.
And how would you act if you saw a situation where you find that consent was not mutual?
Finding myself in that situation or seeing it happen with someone nearby?
Maybe a bit of both, actually, because I think there's going to be different, viewpoints and different ways you'd handle it, dependent on the...
So if in terms of for myself, obviously I'm in a relationship and a committed relationship, so...
Yeah, we'd hope so.
It's hopefully not something I'm going to find myself in anytime soon, but for myself, I've always been very aware of consent. I remember going back sort of when I was 17, 18, and there were a couple of very high-profile court cases in the UK at the time of people going up on date rape charges, and at the time I remember that being an incredibly scary prospect, that you could be out having a good night out, doing what you thought was something fun, and then waking up the next day and realising that you'd crossed the barrier or crossed the line somewhere.
Was those footballer
ruin
things?
Both your life and their life, being wrapped up in courts and things for a long while. So consent is something I've been very aware of since I was a young man.
Was that those footballers that did that, like growing up? So I remember there was a lot of that.
No,
in the tabloids.
this particular one was, I think he was a uni student, and he was like a first year uni student, and he'd been out with somebody. They'd both gotten very drunk, and it turned out that I think he basically it just came down to a case of he said, she said. And eventually, I think the courts decided in his favour that there was no reason why he shouldn't have done what he did, but it basically ruined his life.
Wow.
Completely trashed his life as a young man, and that was something which was very concerning to me at the time, and still would be now as well, which is why I sort of say about Naomi's boys as well, something like that happening. So having a really strong handle on consent and what that means is something critical. The only thing I think is where it starts getting difficult is where you start moving into areas where it becomes very grey, and I think that's where sort of the consent issues become difficult.
Yeah.
So when you've got a couple of people who are drunk, they're having a good time, and then the next morning you wake up and somebody's changed their mind. When did that point of consent change? Were they consenting up to a point? Were they capable of consenting? Were they too drunk to be able to consent? And how do you tell the difference? That's where consent gets difficult, where it gets very, very grey. And that's the thing that I think probably concerns the most.
And I was speaking to this about this to a person on Bumble of all places, when we were talking about dick pics, because like obviously you could be having a bit of banter, having a bit of flirty, berty, talky things, and the guy says, "Oh, I've got a picture of me naked," and she could be like, "Oh, ha ha ha, how funny," because she's coming back, kind of receptive, so he sends it to her and she's like all horrified and stuff, but he's like, hang on a minute, but you seemed you thought it was funny, so I thought it was okay, it's all that sort of jazz as well. It's where does it not stop, or where does it but there is a murky grey area.
It's all around the murky grey area that's the problem. I think consent generally, I think everybody agrees, everybody understands. I don't think there's anything too difficult about it in a black and white situation, but I think it's those murky grey areas that are the ones that you have to worry about. They're the ones where you're going to where people come unstuck, and where people cross the line inadvertently, not realising they've done it in most cases. There's a difference. Don't get me wrong, there's predators out there that are going and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. People are roofing people and all that kind of stuff.
That's different. That's
that's a whole different thing again, but I think for most people, most men are pretty considerate of consent, but it's when they end up on the wrong side of things if they make a misinterpretation somewhere.
And so do you think that consent has changed in the last 20 or 30 years, or the actual conversation has changed, or
people, the guys act differently? Are they a bit more scared to approach people? Could that be a why,
Yeah, I think it definitely has. I think it's the conversation of consent itself hasn't changed, but I think the awareness of people of it has, and the consequences of it have been much more commonly aware now. And I think if you look at how a lot of men approach women now, I think you'll see that as well. I think that sort of that edge of worry that you might cross a line with consent somewhere, it weighs heavily on people. You hear a lot of women saying, "Oh, men these days just don't take the initiative on there," and so you have to really prod them hard for it. And I think that's the consequence of men being very mindful of consent. If I go back to the start of our relationship, I was very, very hands-off and very, very cautious. And I think if you think back on it, I'll let you take the lead in a lot of things, because I didn't want to cross a line.
Yeah, no, and I think that's
crossing a line can be detrimental to your life generally. So you've got to be very careful with it,
especially at the start, because you don't know each other, and you don't know, look, even the guy could. Even she could say something and the guy could say something. It doesn't necessarily have to be the guy who, this consent issue can, mess his life up. It could be vice versa as well, because there are guys who get sexually harassed by women as well. And, and so he said, she said thing there, because most people don't believe that the guy is sexually harassed, even though it does happen. So there is all that as well.
Yeah, and it changes behaviours generally as well. I'm pretty hands-off with people if I'm not actually in a committed relationship with them.
Yeah.
So if you see me out and about, I'm not a hugger.
No.
Because again, even something as simple as that, just giving someone a hug and saying hello to them can be misconstrued. So I don't do it, so I avoid it. So it's one of those things that it's a lifelong learned habit now. And,
I'm a hugger.
It's not something which I would change, because it's all part of that broader conversation.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for your input. Now we've our listeners know who you are.
I'm still going to call him Mr. Naomi, KO, Taekwondo, kicking,
Thanks. It's finally been revealed.
Dun, dun, dun. It's like, what's it? Scooby-Doo.
Thanks, Matt. I'll talk to you soon.
Now, we also have another male counterpart special guest in the studio by the name of Isaac. And, we've got the same questions to him, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So we want what the guys say about consent. So we'll just start asking.
It's very murky, isn't it?
It is.
Consent, especially in this day and age.
It's tough. Yeah, it really, really is.
Yeah. So what's your interpretation of consent?
My interpretation of consent would be just the mutual, agreement between two people that they want to have sex or engage in some kind of sexual activity, but also how it all happens.
Yeah.
That's probably, to me, the more not more, but it's as important
Yep.
as the actual consent of something happening is how it happens and how it goes forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and I think we were me, myself, and Naomi, and me, myself, and Naomi. What the hell? That's right. It's been a long day, right? Me, myself. But no, we were thinking and we were talking about how it can transcend even from dick pics. Or not necessarily dick pics. It could be some woman's bits as well being sent over to like a guy as well. It's
just because you I think that's the biggest thing. When I first started dating again, you start taking chatting and like you said, ha ha ha, everything's fun and good morning, boom, dick pic, and you just
or boobs.
What?
Isaac's
For
face.
Isaac, he looks like scared here. Yeah.
I've never had that.
boobs.
I've literally never had someone. So I was married.
Yep.
And when my wife was overseas for a long period of time, there was exchanges there.
Yeah, because there's, you all
But
together.
I have never ever had a girlfriend send me photos,
Okay.
Yeah.
or especially not a date or like someone.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild to me.
Oh,
Absolutely
seriously,
wild.
seriously. In the date, I don't know, because I'm obviously the single girl about town dating now. You could be talking to somebody on Bumble and just having a lovely banter, lovely stuff, stuff, and then boom, you get a picture. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so
It's
lucky.
exciting. You just never know what you're going to find when you open the message.
Yeah, but guys say the same thing though, as well.
Right.
Some guys.
Wow.
Yeah, some guys they say, boom, I'll get a picture of somebody's arse and
Yep.
boobs
Or flower.
and things.
Somebody's flower.
Flower.
Yep. Not the daffodil kind.
That's
Yeah. So and the thing is, sometimes men don't know how to react as well.
Sure.
Right? Because generally speaking, it's accepted in inverted commas that women will actually make a complaint about a man and say, oh, he exposed himself. But when it's reversed, sometimes men just don't know, like, what would you do if that was to happen?
I mean, I guess it really depends on the situation. Because if it was someone that I was attracted to,
Yes, see?
then it is kind of fine, Like
Yeah, see?
it's and that's the tricky and the murky part about it. Because if it was someone that I wasn't
busted and
attracted
ugly,
to,
you'd be like, no.
well, yeah. And so it's like, I really, really do sort of empathize with people that don't understand exactly where they stand with other people.
Yep.
Can't read social interactions very well. And maybe they think that that's a normal thing. And because it has been so normalized in society these days. It's insane.
And I've said that even in alluded to that in the group, in discussions as well. Where should it stop, right? Just because he's Chris Hemsworth, right?
Do you say yes, it's okay?
Yeah, it's okay, exactly, right?
Well, I mean, if Chris Hemsworth sent me nudes, I probably wouldn't mind either. So,
How did he get those muscles so big?
that's pretty true. But it depends, though, right? It's I guess it's how we're laughing and we're joking about it, but I guess it's if you feel comfortable. So in theory, you would feel comfortable at Chris Hemsworth or Ariana Grande coming up to you because you're like, oh, okay, sweet, right? But if it's somebody who you're not attracted to, you wouldn't obviously feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So I guess it is that comfortability and how you feel.
yeah, exactly. And it's sometimes very difficult to know that how the other person feels if you're feeling that way.
Yes.
You may feel really comfortable with them and think that maybe this is where it's going and send a photo, not picking up the social cues that that's not what they want.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, the social cues,
Do you think that has changed the way that you date?
Not specifically, because that's never really happened a lot to me. But I don't really flirt a lot with, especially the initial stages of messaging and all that sort of stuff. Mostly because my wife was unfaithful to me, and it just made me really, really not like that side of dating, and of getting to know someone. Because I feel like if there's an over-sexualized element of the interaction too early on, you just never know whether the person is genuinely or who they genuinely are.
Yeah.
Because there's so many complex things going on in someone's mind.
Or what they're after. Are they after,
Yeah, exactly. And, like maybe they just do like flirtatious banter, but I would way prefer somebody to actually like me because without that side of things, and then find out that like later on, okay, yeah, it's good. We can have a really good healthy sex life and we can have fun together, but not have that as the basis of the relationship.
Yeah, because it just sort of burns out and fades away anyway. And there could be like, I mean, look, I admit I am quite flirty by nature, but even then I don't know I'm doing it. Yeah, I am overly friendly, I guess, right? And that has put me in certain situations which I'm just like, what the hell?
Where did that come from?
Like there was a work colleague who I was always so nice and whatever with. But for me, I didn't think I was doing anything. Yeah. And then we went out for work do and stuff, and we were both walking to the same bus stop, etc. And we're walking, and then he hugs me and leans in for this kiss, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, Mike.
Where did this come from?
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what the? Seriously, he's like, I thought you liked me. I was like, no.
Yep.
It's like, thanks.
Like I do, but why does it have to be like that?
Thank you. Yeah, why does it have to? Yeah, exactly. Why does it? Yeah, exactly. How does it have to be like that?
So just tell us, if you were put into a situation where you saw two people interact and there wasn't mutual consent, and just say something did happen between the two, what would you do as a bystander?
I feel like it would really depend on the situation, you know, because if either of them seemed like they couldn't defend themselves well, then, you know, I would probably at least step in or ask if they're okay.
Yep.
You know, but then I do also realise that a lot of people will get into these situations and it will look bad on the outside, but they've got no intentions of actually not continuing that relationship, which makes it super complicated. So there's an element of like, yeah, I'd like to think that I would stand up for what's right and what's morally right, but then you just never really know.
It's a bit tricky.
It is tricky because, you know, that could just be the way they interact and it's not healthy, but they don't want anybody stepping in.
Yeah. And also it's tough because sometimes you don't know the whole situation, especially if you're outsider looking in, you don't know the whole situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if I was at a party and, you know, everyone was drinking and then you saw some guy getting this chick drunk. And then I was like, there's no doubt. I'd be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
and,
agreed.
And I would end that situation. But, you know, like if it was a different situation, you know, if you're on the street or something like that, or in a restaurant and something looks a little bit sus, you're probably less likely to.
Yeah. It'd be a case of like, are you okay there? And then not really push it, not like go, oh, you, mate, for fucking trying to.
Oh, God, there's a lot
of beeping. Chris, yeah.
There's a lot of beeping this episode.
You know, there is a lot of beeping. How far do you push it without really knowing what
Yeah. I mean, because that sort of starts to go into the same kinds of conversations about boundaries as consent.
Yeah.
You know, because these two people may not want you to have anything to do with it, and it looks bad, but they've got their boundaries and they have their way they want to do their relationship. But in another case, you know, there could be like the party situation where she doesn't have the capacity to like have boundaries or not.
Yeah.
So,
and do you think the conversation of consent has changed in the last 20, 30 years? Or
I think it definitely has. I feel like the consent in general, maybe a little bit longer, a while ago, was more of just an expectation, especially within relationships and marriages. It was just more of a wife's duty, a woman's duty to sleep with her husband when he got home from work, and like that was part of her role. And now I think it's definitely changed a lot more because, you know, women are becoming way more active in the workforce. Like they're not relying on men to do everything for them anymore. Not that every woman was like that, but like just in general, women are becoming so much more independent and they have a voice of their own now that they feel like they can use and be heard a lot more. And so I think that conversation has, like with consent, has changed a lot because it's become a lot less of an obligation than it is from just willing partners engaging in a relationship that needs that conversation because it's not just an expectation anymore.
And I think you're right with the whole expectation thing, because I think if we go back to our, you know, parents' age, like back in the 70s, 80s, some of the comedy, I mentioned this to you, like Benny Hill and stuff like that, was really risque. There's people like grabbing at, you know,
grabs
women and
Yep.
running around, and it's like, it's
Oh,
funny.
you're so
right?
funny. Yeah.
And now you would never.
Or even like ads back in the 80s. They had like razzmatazz. I don't know if it was probably before your time.
No, it's British.
But it was like, but they had these ads for pantyhose for women, and the women would be wearing, pantyhose walking down the street, and there was this song, or razzmatazz, and you'd have wolf whistles and all this stuff that was on women, and that wasn't, and that was just what 80s. What is that? 40 years ago.
It's 40 years ago. Jesus. Sorry. Okay. All right.
Right. So,
no, but it's true though. I mean, like even the wolf whistle thing. Like you get hollered at. I used to get hollered at all. Yeah, and you just now you're like.
I mean, that's a huge thing that's changed in construction, especially.
Yeah,
that's the industry that you're in, isn't it?
Yeah,
Whereas
majorly.
so male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
But it's true though, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, it was a well-known, and it was like kind of like, well, it's a compliment, I guess. Right.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Like it's, I mean, and that's the same sort of thing as if someone super attractive sent you nudes, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And so like, if someone's walking along a construction site and there's some super hot dude, construction hat on, abs out, like, and he's like, oh, wolf whistles at her, she's probably going to turn around and be like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
well, you know
it.
what, it's been worse. And but then if it's like the typical person that's in construction, it's like you just don't want that kind of attention.
No.
It's true.
It's insane that it was ever acceptable, because it was just a normal thing for so long.
Yeah. And as a woman, and this is, you're right, even just 10, 15 years ago, I'd be walking down the street and the same thing, and I'd be just like, Jesus, man, I can't even just go and get a bag of crisps, man.
Yeah. And do you
it's
think, and obviously you would have seen the different changes over the years, even women on construction sites now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would have influenced a lot of the language that's being spoken on site, or?
I think it definitely does, for sure. But maybe not necessarily only just the fact that there's women on site, but it's just the whole
demeanour of the more professional.
And the awareness?
Yeah, the awareness behind it, because now with OH&S and you have so many more obligations with site safety than just stopping someone getting a nail through their foot.
Yep.
And site safety these days is about being safe at work in every aspect of work.
Yep.
And that is a huge difference in construction, because before it was male dominated. Like if there was a girl on site, she was probably from the office, and and so she was just sexualized and gawked at, and that was that. But now you get women that are actually active roles in trades, and not that it was ever acceptable, but it is so much less acceptable now. But also there's a lot of training involved in that.
Yep.
And so the generations coming through haven't been exposed to
what it was before.
Style of exactly what it was before. So, which is a good thing, which is a really good thing, because I think that even trades are definitely one of those places where you get a lot of coarse language, you get rough guys, and you get the expectation that it's just, going to be a bit of a jungle. These days, I think a lot of that is really changing, and I think it's for the better, because people should act in a respectful and responsible way, especially to other people in every scenario.
Isaac, thank you very, very much for that. And
we've got more of Isaac coming up a little bit later.
yes, we do.
Thank you very much.
Perfect match.
So here we are back in Bella Vista Hotel. We're back, people. And we now have another perfect match couple with us.
That's
so
right.
let's say hello to Isaac and Sandrine.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome to the show, and welcome to
Thank
our perfect match segment. Thank you for participating in it. You don't know how hard it was to search for a man in Sydney.
Really?
There's a bit of man drought.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. Look how shocked he is. They're scaring him. It's like...
This is why he's not from Sydney.
Yeah.
We had to search far and wide.
Yeah.
To find Isaac.
Exactly. I was like trawling those Facebooks and just putting ads out and everything, but it worked. You know,
Yeah,
like,
so
you know.
Isaac
Yeah,
is,
here we are.
Yeah, so Isaac's not at our Sydney friends, but we've just added him.
Yeah, he's now fully ingrained and joined in. But look, here we are in Bella Vista Hotel. What was your first impressions?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Well, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. I think that she's quite attractive, and we got along like pretty much instantly. Like
Okay.
I didn't feel awkward at all. I just felt really comfortable, and so I enjoyed it.
Green ticks, green
Yeah,
ticks.
2 green ticks.
Yay! And Sandrine?
I was actually, I was relieved when I first saw you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's cute. And then when we walked over to the bar, I don't know, it felt like I felt the same. It just felt comfortable and not awkward at all. It didn't really feel like a first date because we just started talking about, we kind of went in deep very early on and just felt comfortable with each other.
Awesome.
So,
I think it's weird because when people come into this, right, they're like, oh, you know, this is really weird. Obviously, you guys have set us up. Like, now we have to come and talk about it and all this jazz. But generally speaking, they're really surprised by, you know, how easy it is. Because at first, you're just kind of like, oh, bugger. It's this new person for the first time.
that's your matchmaking skills then.
Yeah, see, look at me.
You do good.
That's amazing. And
So, Lou, can you share with us why did you match these guys up?
before we went on air, before we started recording, it came out and they both found this out from each other. They're both Aquarius. Now, you guys have you heard the podcast previously before?
I haven't.
You haven't? You used to come in here literally blind then. Naomi humours me a lot when it comes to the matchmaking stuff. And if you see, you both filled in the form, etc. And on there is a star sign thing on there. And you're obviously both Aquarius. Now, I look into the whole astrology thing, and it's just kind of like, for me, a bit of science, and just to see is there any any kind of thing into it.
Yeah.
So I do try and match people within their, relevant kind of star signy type stuff, either if it's air or the same, etc. And just to see if there's any commonality there. And you guys alluded to that earlier. So that's great. You both picked beach holidays.
Okay.
You both said you were a 4 when it came to how fit are you. There is also the favourite vegetable question, and it's basically, we would like to see.
I should have asked you that.
We basically want to see, can we make a soup out of it?
Okay. I can't remember what I wrote.
Well,
I'm assuming that it was pumpkin or sweet potato or something.
Well, you wrote, Sandrine wrote raw carrot and you wrote pumpkin. So you can, I'd say, look at that.
That is a good
Did I
pumpkin
put
soup.
raw carrot? Oh, okay.
Very, very
I was
specific.
Yeah.
We can garnish it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you
funny.
need to actually have carrot and pumpkin to make a good pumpkin soup.
Yeah, exactly. See?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Now you do.
Learning so much today.
For the animal, because we do ask for a spirit animal. Okay, so I'm going to ask Isaac because he wrote he was unsure. Are you still unsure?
Yeah, still unsure. Like I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't really be able to say 100%.
Do you have a favourite animal?
No. I love all animals equally.
Oh, it's Mr. Doolittle over here. Sandrine said elephant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she gave reasons why as well.
Right.
Did she?
Do people not do that?
No.
Oh, okay. See, I'm specific. Raw carrot.
Yeah, that's
This is why. This is my spirit animal.
and generally speaking, that's generally what an Aquarius is as well. It is that, you are very much like that.
Do you want to know what the reason is?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
please.
I'm
Please
Yes,
find it.
please.
I can't remember what I wrote.
Loyal and honest.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And they do have very good memories too.
They do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And so that was basically it. And you also said that you wanted a loyal person as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so emphasis on loyal Loyal
So
there.
tell us, did you find something?
Oh, sorry, and obviously the age group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So Isaac is 39, and Sandrine. I'm never going to say a lady's age on air.
No, thank you.
I was getting daggers, mate. but my age range
I thought
there.
the podcast was about to end early then.
So I mean, like there was all those commonalities there. I mean, and you said that you know the conversation flowed, etc.
It
Was
did.
anything else that you learnt from each
Yeah.
other?
Like from each other, about each other.
Yeah, about each other. So name one interesting thing that you learned about Sandrine.
Definitely her career.
Yeah.
And her study choices. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Quite- yeah, I mean, to me, that's really intriguing that you study as much as you do.
Yeah.
And have that interest in learning to that degree. Like
Yeah.
reading books and sort of listening to podcasts is one thing, but then actually actively taking part in a course and
Yeah.
getting a certification is another entire thing. Like, and it's really quite impressive.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. He's a very good listener. He really is.
Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah,
he's
he was
also-
taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. And is there anything else, Sandrine? Like you've found out about good old Isaac over here?
I also think you're a very curious person too. And I like the fact that you do anything from like going to the gym and surfing to like, doing dance classes and you're rounded. You're not like, oh no, I need to be this way and act in this. And you're just like, you do what interests you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that was really cool.
I think that's again another commonality is that because look, as I said, I am very into this whole star sign astrology thing, right?
Yeah.
And Aquarius seem to like beat to the sound of their own drum. They're very comfortable in their own skin. They don't really care if they like something and they want to do it, be it like I don't know, sculpting melons or something, and that's what they want to do. He's like, that's a good idea,
Oh, I think I'll take off on that.
Yeah, they'll do it. It's like don't really care what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, we're a free spirit.
Yeah, free spirited. Yeah, I know this because my son's dad was Aquarius.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he still is.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah, it hasn't changed. Actually, no. Yeah. So I guess look, the main question is, and why we're all here is, will you guys see each other again? And yeah.
I would like to.
Yeah, me too. Well done, ladies.
It's almost like
That's what I mean.
we've got glitter coming down in the studio.
Yeah, it's like when The Voice, when the winners win,
Yeah,
like
the winners announced.
Golden buzzer.
Yeah. Wait, has anyone actually ever said no?
Yes,
Yes.
Really? Oh.
Yeah,
You got to tell me what episode that is. I want to go back and listen. That'd be a juicy episode. Some drama in the studio.
Oh well, you should listen to. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you offline. But thank you, Sandrine and Isaac, and keep us posted.
Yes.
We will, definitely.
Well, Naomi, that was another jam-packed chockers, but very in-depth and very informative.
Yeah, we did have a lot of deep discussions.
Yes, and it was. Look, I really enjoyed that episode. I reckon a lot of women are going to fall in love with Isaac.
I think so.
But I think Sandrine will tell him to get off. Yeah, but I look forward to seeing how they work out.
Yeah, it was quite an emotional episode for us as well.
It was.
We took our listeners on a bit of a journey today.
And again, if you were affected by anything that you heard regarding in this episode, we have got a lot of lines and info in the production notes for this episode.
Yeah.
So please check that out. And I want to say also thanks again to Naomi for sharing that. That wouldn't have been easy.
No.
We all cried.
You're welcome. Just a preview for next week's episode, Luke.
Yeah, so next week's episode, you'll be talking about how our childhood shapes our relationships that we have as adults in Naomi's Wifey Lifey.
And in Lou's dating diary, you're going to be sharing with us your dating adventures for the next week, and also touching on that topic of long distance relationship.
Yeah, and why I don't like doing that. And we look at when is too soon to say I love you in question of the week.
And we've managed to find some more men. So we've got perfect match couples coming up as well.
Yeah, so let's see if we'll find another perfect match. All that and more
In next week's episode.
Bye.
See ya.